Okay, so I finally finished this book. It's been over a year, maybe 2, don't know, don't write the dates down. And I don't know which number this is, but let's call this Sketchbook Tour number 1 and start from the beginning. Hi and welcome to a new Sketchbook Tour. I'm going to count this as the first one because this is the first full sketchbook where I'm talking, whereas the previous ones I was too afraid to talk on camera 2.5 years ago. So for those who don't know, I'm Chris and I'm an artist from the UK, and I go under the name Extemporary Art, which is unplanned intuitive art. And so this sketchbook is all focusing on a lot of portraits, a lot of them from photos, and I normally, when using a sketchbook, want to work from life, so next one I want to do more of that. But let's get straight into the sketchbook, and as we get to the first page, you can see this quote, because I think I added this later, where it was from the Dreams Are Real workshop, I think, where we go on Zoom every week with heart-centered entrepreneurs and looking at the reasonable and kind versus the unrealistic and destructive, damaging or smart goals, stubborn versus adaptable. Don't know what that was going on about, but I found some paper and I just stuck it in the sketchbook. Then we're looking at this portrait, which is very stylized and just a way to move the pen around, get this emotion across, and not really overly worried about the image, but just allowing that time to create something. As we go into the first few pages, playing with words, I'm so cloud to see you. And clouds is something I want to get better at because I think they're magical and have a real atmosphere, and I want to create that different light and play around with that, different brush strokes. This was just very much just get it down on paper, but I want to try and get better at that. Then I got the portrait because it just fitted the space, and again playing with different colours and different textures and allowing the pen to move across the page, because the sketchbook is a playground and my sketchbooks are often messy with a few paintings that kind of worked in among them. So this next one is a character that I came up with in uni for a circus freak show, and it was a sword swallower, but I've made him into a street art person here, and then the monkey, having a monkey on his shoulder, doing most of the artwork, and he appears on the next page as well. Then this was again just finding different textures and different ways of creating a portrait, and I'm really happy with the colours on this one and the way you've got gaps in amongst the texture, and it reminded me of the Dali piece, and I did do a video around that and I'll put it on screen again now, but it reminds me of that, so I added the tail on afterwards once I saw that this other page had a lot of gap there. Then as we go on to the next page, this is really silly, looking at the were puppet, how he has acquired it from a 3D shop and it's bitten him on the hand and mimicked and recreated him through the DNA, and just kept going to the point where every hand and foot has turned into the puppet. Then this other piece I tried varnishing just to see what it would look like in a sketchbook for the shine. Stuck all my pages together, and as you can see it's ripped, and I'm really happy with the detail here though. If you look at the eyes a bit closer, as you can see, just all the different colours that I've put with the layers, so really happy with how those have turned out, and I would like to get more of my eyes looking this way. Then as we go into the ripped page, this was all from my head, so looking at the width of the face, often that's what happens when it goes through my filter and I change it through my brain and the way I see the world. This is how it comes out, and I don't tend to try and control that, it's just the way it happens. Some more clouds, the sunset with clouds darting over the sky, and again it's just taking an object and making you think of that thing, but I would like to add a bit more subtlety into there, and this was just a very quick sort of study. And then this is the world, the alien planet that puppet came from, playing with Alice in Wonderland kind of theme, but having these weird faces in the trees, and this yoga figure with the swirly shoes, and my little alien in the corner. Next one is looking at a portrait study, and I'm not overly happy with this, it doesn't quite work, but I love how the ivory paper allows for that white to show up, and the paper being off-white I can really play with the highlights a bit more, and I really enjoyed doing this study and while it's not overly successful, some of the hands look a little bit strange. I think the overall kind of glance works really well. Then this next one, I can't remember which order I did it in, probably did the face first and then fitted in the nude around it. And I'm really happy with the neon colours and the vibe of this one. It feels like kind of a club neon city shining through this window. And I've just changed the colours completely and really enjoyed doing so. Now this one became a painting, and it's kind of looking at that feeling of music and what it gives us and getting lost in the music vibes. And the painting is more colourful and textural and just very thick paint, and then this one is just playing with that kind of flow of the soul food and soul music. The next one is looking at different angles and the weight of line and playing with portrait, and then I just still felt this creative itch, so I drew a load of quick coloured paintings on the other side. And I think the top one is oil, but I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember that one. But they're very crude and just wanting to keep creating. Then this next one is just, again, trying to get that creativity out. And I think I may have done it straight after, but trying different mediums and different colours. And I have a real love for the kind of 90s Converse kind of fashion, and just fun to draw, even though maybe didn't look good at the time. But yeah, fun to draw. This again is many doodles of wanting to get that creativity out. And I don't know what program I was watching, but I don't think it was the Pride and Prejudice zombies, although it may have been inspired by that. And again, the eye I'm happy with. This next one I'm not that happy with. It was kind of looking at the Alphonse mocha kind of hair and playing around with that. And then the coffee with the early morning. So not being a morning person, that's kind of what I draw sometimes. It's the one thing I allow myself to have, other than sugar and caffeine. So yeah, coffee is my thing. The next one I'm really happy with. I think it's quite subtle, and it was just playing around with painting over a sketch. And I don't really like painting over my pencil marks because I feel like they come through and it loses some of the energy of just painting. Normally I will use the paint to draw it out and to block it out in shapes rather than lines. And then this one I'm very happy with. I've even had it professionally scanned, so there are prints available, cliche prints, which have a 100-year fade-resistant guarantee. And I'm just really happy with all the different textures and brushstrokes and the overall kind of feel of it. And it's kind of leading towards the Jenny Saville kind of paintings, which at first I didn't like because they're very grotesque in their sort of colour palette and the angles and things. But actually there's a lot of beauty behind that as well, and how it sort of celebrates all sizes. And so I limited my palette with the Sawn palette, and this is the result. And the next one I think I drew straight after, with wanting you get that itch of creativity out again, but didn't really have the energy by that point. And it was later. It's probably later on when I couldn't sleep, as the words will indicate. And yeah, just playing with insomnia and the coffee drinkers and trying to function. Then the next one I made into a couple of paintings. So that was something that was a new challenge to paint from a painting, where normally I use an actual photo or from life. And really happy with how those turned out, really happy with how these turned out, and just love all the different sort of directional texture and brush marks here. And then the lips I used the brush itself to create the texture in those, which I think was very successful in terms of creating volume and being like a 3D object. The next one I've left on its own page because I think it's more successful having some of that paper around it, and I think it would make a very good t-shirt, and I just wanted to keep that space and this sort of quirkiness of this smiling, dripping face. The next one was just a doodle of just wanting to create something but not really having the energy to do so. So often I'll just sketch with music and not really trying to create anything in particular, but just sketching. And that continued onto the next page with this cat that I found online and just wanted to draw. Then we have the Redbubble sticker with the red coming out of it and the face. Again, this is done from my head, so I've made the face a bit wider again. Don't know why that happens. And then this cheerleader who's combating the inner critic. I don't know why I've made him a small bearded man, but that's just the way it happened. Then this one was just in a coffee shop drawing the coffee and the little milk jug, although I've made it a lot bigger, but I think it kind of works with being next to the coffee cup. Now this will become a series of women who are either in water or nature. So this one being Venus flytrap, and the others being like lilies and water and that sort of thing. And this one's just falling. The astronaut helmet kind of represents finding yourself and that exploration of self. And I think this is really successful, and I like the sort of peach kind of colour in the background. Now these next portraits are the inspiration from another artist who does these faces in space, where normally I fill the whole page. So I wanted to play around a bit more of that, and I'm really happy with these. They have this nice feel to them, and I love all the little highlights and love all the scratches and the painterly, and they're just really fun to make. And wasn't, again, all the sketchbook stuff is messy, and I'm not really thinking about anything in particular. I'm just listening to music, zoning out and enjoying the pen or paint moving across the page. This one was also a limited palette, and happy with how the blue works, and again has a nice feel to it. And yeah, just really happy with how this piece came out, and the dry brush on the other side to continue this page. And I always start on the right side because of the new paper being underneath it, unless I've gone in a different order, of course. Now, this next one was trying to capture this joyous grin, which I think I've captured the mood, but the lightness and the actual accuracy isn't quite there. But I certainly feel like I've captured the movement and the sort of joy of this piece. And the same with the couple on the other page, wanting to create that, capture that love between them. Now, this one I'm really happy with. I think the flow works well. It's only a few lines on the other page to indicate hair, but I think that works well, and it just feels good as a double page spread, and really happy with the lips and how they've turned out. And I think it's probably one of the more successful pieces, and the eyes have some shine to them, even though it's done in graphite. So the next one is a recent one from September, and you would have seen a video of me going to the Secret Garden in Bradford-on-Avon, and just wanted to capture the scene. Looking back, I think you can't really tell where it is, and could have added a bit more depth and contrast to it, but overall really happy with just remembering that moment. Then back to portraits, and I wanted to add colour originally, but decided against it halfway through, so got this sort of sheen of orange, and it went through to the other side, I think, so I've painted over that, and you get this nice ghostly pencils, which I want to do more of, because I think it adds kind of like a good quality, and it feels very Francis Bacon with the screaming priest, and no idea where the characters come from on the other page. Kind of reminds me of like the Moomins, and don't know where that came from, but possibly an influence from childhood. Then I absolutely love ravens and crows, and they're just very difficult to draw because of the many different shades of black and things, which has a lot of purple in it. If you look closely, the reflections blue or purple, or at least that's a good way of capturing it. So this was very quick. I didn't really have the time or the patience to push it any further, but I will be revisiting it at like another time. I have a few canvases all sketched and ready to go with figures and ravens and crows, so that's another theme I might explore in a series at another time. And I think this was from the new Hellraiser, but I'm not 100% on that, and just playing around with watching TV, pausing and 5-10 minute sketch and then continuing the film. I really like this pose, and it was actually from Instagram, so I've changed it a lot to avoid copyright and things, but I tend to focus more on the Pexels photos, so that I don't have to worry about that, and I often do lose the original, so won't be able to put a link in there for that one. But that was a very inspiring pose, and I wanted to capture it with the lighting and things. So on to the next one, and this is back to Pexels photos again, and these are all of the same person, well, the same model, but different angles and things, and really enjoyed capturing these, and I think they work really well. They have a nice feel to them and weight, and the angle is quite difficult to capture with kind of looking up and down at the same time. And yeah, just different mark making and different qualities of line to capture these ones. This was playing around with markers, and I'm not really that happy with them. They don't really have the right vibe or feel to them, but just playing around in the sketchbook because that's the playground and it should be safe in the sketchbook to do so. This next one is a technique I haven't really used much, with overlaying different pencils, and I think I may have used a bit of matte medium in between, I can't remember now, but that kind of helped blur them a bit. I definitely did some sort of blending, and this is of the new character, even though it doesn't look anything like her, but I thought the new film, don't know what they call them, the Hellraiser people, was very well done, and really enjoyed that side of it. But the film was okay, but it was a lot faster than the originals, so I enjoyed it from that point of view, and really happy with his image. The Freddy Krueger, on the other hand, I'm not happy with. I think it's very difficult to try and like capture a prosthetic and movie magic and not a real person. So I would have liked to have made the white bits and a bit more contrast in between. And then some 2-minute sketches, very quick, just capturing people that were there in the cafe. And then capturing the condiments as well. So just painting my surroundings, well, drawing my surroundings and creating this loose look at the world. The next one, I painted the other page yellow because I didn't like the image, and I felt like as a double page it worked better with the other one, even though the image is coming through now, so I need to paint over it yet again. But really happy with the image and the feel of it, and I think it really works well with the other page being yellow for some reason. This one, I don't really tend to paint a lot of masculine people, even though I do think all bodies are beautiful, especially when you're drawing them. You tend to notice the human beauty within all. But I couldn't quite capture this person here, and it was just something new, using ballpoint pen to create those darks and lights and things. The other one was going to start off as like a martini glass, but then morph into a pin-up naturally, just like fitting the character into this shape. I feel really happy with that one. I think it could become a good painting if I were to push it that bit further. Although it's probably a bit cliche and it's probably been done before in terms of the pin-up. But it's my sketchbook, so that's what my mind wanders, and I just play around with different things. Like, what can I draw this time? Feeling flat as a pancake, so thought I'd capture it here in the sketchbook. And then the YouTube algorithm. So we're always sacrificing our time and trying to appease it and trying to second guess it, and we're doing things to feed the algorithm rather than just our own creativity and sketching. I mean, I'm making this video, so that's part of it, but I do want to share my work with everyone. It's just doing so in a way that feels like I'm doing it because I want to share my work and share my artwork with you, rather than sharing something because I think it's a good idea to put on YouTube. There's a really subtle difference there, and I don't want to become a slave to the algorithm. So I just created these little characters, sort of figuring it out, and they're all a bit clueless really, and they're just chanting to YouTube, to the algorithm, so I just created these little monk characters who are trying to appease the algorithm and throwing things into the flames and just chanting away. Right, and then looking at angel life and death and just playing around with stone statues. I looked at a lot of different angel statues, and always good fun to draw like a skull and things as part of art practice. So next, a load of mouths, because I wanted to get better at those, and I have noticed that my mouths are getting more 3D and more textural now. The next thing to do is to look at noses and get better at those and the facial structure, and then hands and then feet, and then there's a lot more of learning that keeps continuing throughout life. But here I was just trying different mouths out just to get that sort of volume in pen, and then paint, and then I will go over them more. So this is my little mascot, my logo. Your mind is a maze, dude. And this is for all the insomnia people, all those who aren't morning people who struggle. And yeah, this is just the morning and trying to get through it. Some very sketchy portraits, and my sketchbook is full of messy portraits just to move the pen around, not really focusing too much on the image, just I'm sure it all adds up. Creating all of these rubbish arts in quote marks leads to some really good paintings happening. So I just create often in the sketchbook and hope for the best and hope things will work out. So yeah, my sketchbooks are messy, and I think from reading the comments, a lot of people get overwhelmed by seeing other people's very polished sketchbooks. So this is definitely not one of those. And then the next one is just looking at the way we stand and looking at that weight. The head's pretty small on this one, but I'm happy with that lean and getting that kind of pose right, or at least the feel of it being right. And same with the earrings, just getting that kind of feel. And then I think this one was probably from that Singing Crocodile movie that I haven't seen. There's a lot of trailers going around. Yeah, Shawn Mendes, I think, plays the crocodile. And I haven't seen anything about it since, so I wonder how it did. This was looking at the Yeti, having lost his eyes and found that some mountaineers turned it into a cocktail. But it's got all these weird oddities within it. And I've had a fascination with eyes, probably around the time that the Neversoft logo came out. And I don't know if I came up with it before or it was in my consciousness or what, but it was probably around that kind of time when the first Tony Hawk's came out that I started creating these eyeballs. Then this is a very loose couple reflection, kind of like playing cards, and didn't get round to fully rendering it, but I'm happy with the kind of loose line work here. And then this portrait, which I think was in gouache, and really happy with how it turned out, and the colours and the feel of it. And the face shape isn't quite there. I find it very difficult when the other cheek is kind of hidden behind the nose, and that's something else I'm practicing as well. But the sketchbook is somewhere where I try all this stuff out and just slosh paint around, and yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out with the colours. Now this one is kind of the ADHD kind of oversharing, and I injured my toe, and I won't go into details because I mentioned it to the PT just to basically say that I'm not making this up, and yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done, maybe a bit squeamish, but yeah, so, well, this thing happened, meaning that, and everyone's reaction is just like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then I've been doing a Zoom, The Dreams Are Real, as part of Leaders Must Lead with Dan McPherson, which is wonderful, uplifting, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and we meet every week, or at least we do when life isn't busy, but they meet every week. And I haven't got Katie right at all here, but just a quick 2 to 5 minute sketch, and then we're on to the portrait, which I'm so happy with this one. I think it's got a lot of energy and movement and real soul behind the person, and it's no one in particular. It's off Pexels again, and just putting music on, finding a good reference photo, and creating this in the sketchbook. And then Dan McPherson, which again I haven't got the lightness quite right, but wanted to capture something of the moment. Then I'm really happy with this portrait with the red background, and I think it really helps bring the portrait up from the page, and really happy with it overall. And then a lot of different pop culture references with Little Juice and Little Shop of Horrors, and then I don't know who the other person is. I think that's just some random 2 faces from my head, which again didn't quite work, but again playing around with colours and texture and different layers just to move the paint around, and it just helps keep your eye in a bit, even though these haven't worked it so well. Then really happy with how the hair flows in this, and I don't often do ink to this level. Again, you see other artists and you could probably take it further, but really happy with the feel of this and the flow of it. The only thing I would have changed is make the hair more dark contrast and things. So I'm very analytical around my work, even though I wouldn't say I'm critical. I find it very natural, but I can be very analytical and then worry that other people will see some of the stuff that hasn't worked, but it all builds to it. And if I take on a commission, things go wrong, but then you have the confidence and the ability to overcome it and to make adjustments. So even with that, you don't have to get it right first time. It's just trusting yourself that you'll overcome it. Then this one I'm really happy with. I was just creating the theme of water and just got really inspired. So this person underwater with the goldfish, he was looking a little bit shocked, probably because he wasn't expecting to see a human there. But really happy with that. And then the theme continues with this person in the bath and different lilies around in a swamp. And that's kind of the theme I want to create, is these female characters in amongst the nature and reclaiming. Then I've been working a lot of oil pastels because they're just a very quick way to get colour into the sketchbook, and they're very difficult to get the precision, but I enjoy them nonetheless, and I really enjoy sort of how instant they are with the colour. And this one's a bit more successful with the scratching off of the oil pastel. And then got this nude, which didn't quite work with the gouache, but again got inspired with the light that I didn't capture. This was kind of looking at the kind of theme of like that Time Bandits person with the boat on the head, and I created the city on top of this person's head with various things happening beneath, which again might turn into a painting. Then moving on into the Pexels conversation with these 2 women in the coffee shop, and just want to capture that conversation, and I want to do more of that in person. Then this is looking at a different angle and playing around with that and wanting to have people in water, and yeah, this will become a painting. And then you see all the thumbnails for the paintings, just looking at people in water and different angles and things, and I really like those photos where it's looking through the water with the sky above. Now this was from Sandfort Castle, I think in Weymouth, when I went away as part of a vlog and just have a look around. Inspired by Cody Warner, who went to New York for the day, and I took the train, which was about 4 hours, but I probably could have driven it a lot quicker. And that was the beginning of the year. Didn't realise it was so cold and at that time. Then different bodies sort of merged and playing around with that, wanting to sort of look at that Dali bodies in the landscape, and another re-looking at the morning person with this "Your mind is a maze, dude." But I think the other one was much more successful. Looking at the Racing Dion TV series, but I never really took it any further. I was really quite happy with the facial expressions and things, but again, very sketchy, and would have maybe liked to revisit it, but I probably won't now, just because I've lost interest, which happens quite a bit. And then getting better at markers again, playing around with his face in different angles and expression. Again, just playing in the sketchbook. And again with his face, looking down and then looking through the eyebrows a bit more. And then this was kind of inspired by another artist's work, which I'll put a link in the description, of this nude in water. And then I found this good photo that I could use. This one I'm really happy with in terms of the style and the bold colours, which I might get more into, of saturating the image more rather than trying to draw it as it is, but really enjoying playing with the flow of lines around the hips and things. This one I just wanted to create something, but I didn't really have the energy to do so I just did this very quick, like 1 minute sketch or less or whatever it was. Kind of same with this one, with the hotel. I wanted to create something, but you would have seen this from a video where, not too long ago, where I went to a wedding for my cousin, went to a hotel for my cousin's wedding, and yeah, this wasn't that successful. The one that's upside down, which I'll flip around, was creating in my own style, even though it wasn't really my own style. But again, I'd want to give more time to it next time. Now these have the little octopus animation throughout, but I decided to incorporate that with these. And the one on the left is the GTA kind of inspired loading screen, that kind of looking at different expressions. These two I'm really happy with the different whites, and I'll do a close-up, but really enjoy using white gel pen and playing around with that, and looking at just creating a nice portrait and playing around with layers. These were from a coffee shop, and again got the little octopus that I did from an animation, and this dog just kept staring at me, and I think he wanted to come over and say hello, but obviously with the owners I wasn't sure, but yeah, it kept looking at me, so I managed to capture this moment. Now I don't know what I was doing here, but it's probably for Halloween with the sharp teeth, and just again trying to create something, but didn't quite work. I was trying to create it from the T-Rex animation that I did it for TikTok, as you can see on the lips, and playing around facial shapes with the pen. The one on the left is of oils. I was going to do a video where I painted over it in acrylics just to show what would happen, but never got round to it. Might still do a video on that at like another time, but use a different piece just to show the different layering and different drying times and in the couple. More doodles with the outline of the T-Rex, with the animation that was there, just very much a doodle page I've created something. And then these two faces, which I'm really happy with. I think the orange one's more successful, but both are fun, I think, and have that kind of extemporary art kind of vibe. So overall, I'm happy with them. More of a doodle page, just needing to sketch something, which continues for a couple of pages and keeps going. And then we're into the cafe sketch again. And I don't know what it is, but I love big headphones, and it's become a theme that a lot of artists follow. And I just think they have a good aesthetic to draw, and this person was looking at his phone and just was a nice captured moment. And then trying to paint vehicles around the cafe, but I tend to warp them and squish them because I can't get the perspective right. But it's not something I really create often, but I just saw these and wanted to. Don't know what his face is. Little zombie dude. Another little zombie dude, which are apparently really difficult to draw. And then just trying a profile portrait, because I don't often do those, so I wanted to practice that. And yeah, the sketchbook is just somewhere that I try things out, and some work, some don't. And then these were going to be trees, but didn't work at all, even though I might add another few layers and see if I can get it to where I want it to be. These are both from Pexels, so a woman holding up her coat and a musician. So overall I think these are quite fun, but maybe don't have quite the same vibe that I wanted in previous images. I couldn't get the arm right, but another Pexels photo. And then the multiple teacups, just trying things out, and I decided to give it some legs just to give it a bit of character. And I thought I'd draw some more birds with the eagle recently selling, and these coffee mugs with severed hands, having watched a new series of Wednesday with Thing. Scribble art, trying to turn it into a character, and different marker portrait with it seeping through and creating on the background as well. And then the service station that I like because it has nice views and has a nice layout, and it's often where I stop, where I go see my friends, so it's become a regular in that sense, where I see them once or twice a year, and that's where I stop for a coffee halfway through. It's only 2.5 hours away, but yeah, it's nice to stop. And then these are self-portrait in the coat being cold, and it's got colder, and then just written down the service station in which I drew them. And I wish this was the right way up, but I put it on the back in the service station. I didn't realise, but I decided not to add any more detail because I like the shapes and the different colours and things, so happy with that one overall. So that is it, that's the sketchbook. So thank you for watching this video, and if you want to see more of these, subscribe because it helps the channel, and I will be doing more sketchbooks because I love doing sketchbooks. I wrote my dissertation on sketchbooks, and it's just finding time to create them, but I often have a sketchbook on me when out and about, so they soon get filled up, and there will be more of these along the way, along with different vlogs and behind the scenes, and looking at the artist's life from the emerging artist where I am now to hopefully one day reaching the dreams of going full-time as more and more of you connect to the artwork. So thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.